Hi everybody, and welcome back to part 4 of Life is Better in Full Bloom. So in this video we're going to be quilting our flanges and borders, and then also there's a few little filler blocks that go on the front, and those have to be quilted also to be put on the front. So like there's some little pieces like this, and there's about 4 of them. And those need to be quilted also because they, all the other ones are quilted. So we need to quilt those with, there's 2 methods of quilting the blocks. So this is method 2. So we'll do those at the end, but I'm going to start with the borders and the flanges. So the borders are going to be the narrower 1 inch. Well, you cut them a 1.5 inches. And then the flanges are the 2.5 one, the ones you cut 2.5 inches. So these are going to be done with a border design, and it's border, let's see here, border spring 2 that we're going to be using. And technically, okay, so when I cut these, and we talked about this in the first video, when I cut these, they tell you to cut them at a certain size. What I do is I cut my strips. I cut 2 strips the width of the fabric. And if you have a fat quarter, cut it, 4 of them the width of the fat quarter. Okay, so I just cut 2 the width of the fabric, so they're like 45 inches wide, and 1.5 inches, and then these are 2.5 inches by the width of the fabric. So there's 2 of these. Okay, and it makes it much faster to quilt the borders and the flanges. So we're going to start with the borders, and these they do with blue thread. So they're doing matching thread for the borders and the flanges. They're doing white with the flange, which is done in yellow, and then the borders are blue. So they're doing a matching blue. Okay, so I've got my, this is blue 017, my light blue. I'm actually going to try to get this into the machine here. I have still have that same spool. I wish it'd be done. Hopefully we'll finish it up this time. So, because it's got that little bottom part that doesn't want to close for me. So we're going to go ahead and thread that in the machine here. Get that threaded. And I've got my no-show mesh in my hoop. Now, you notice I have kind of an odd looking hoop here. So I love this old hoop. This is a border hoop that brother brought out many, many years ago, actually, with a Quattro, I think. And I still love this because it's got these little deals down here that I can just push the button and it flips up. And so when I do the narrow borders, I usually use this hoop, and then I use a 12-inch design. So with the 12-inch design, even if you do a 14-inch design, you still have to hoop it 4 times to do the whole width of the fabric. And I just do the 12-inch because then it actually quilts almost all the way to the bottom on the last hooping. So I just do my borders and my flanges in one long piece, and then I trim them as I'm putting my top together. And we'll be doing putting the top together, the pillow together, in the next video, and then I'll show you that. So, okay, so we're going to start with these borders, the narrow borders made in the blue. I've got my blue, light blue 017 in the machine. I have just bobbin thread in the bobbin, my no-show mesh in the hoop. Okay, I'm going to get my white thread out of the way because we'll use that for the other one. And we are going to use spring 2. So let's go get the border design. And this is a 1 inch. It's going to finish 1 inch because we cut them 1.5. So I'm going to go to my stick, and we're going to choose the Kimberbell Quilting, and it's border spring 2. See, my borders are up here towards the top here. Borders, loops. Here we're getting close to the S's here. Spring 1, spring 2. So spring 2. We're going to use the 1 inch design, and then we're going to use the 12-inch length. So I'm going to use 1 by 12. That seems to be the size that works better. Now, if you only have a smaller machine, if you have a 6 by 10 hoop, use the 1 by 10. You'll just have to hoop it another time. This is a 12-inch hoop, and I usually use the 12-inch hoop. You could do the 14-inch hoop, but you still have to hoop it 4 times, so it doesn't matter. I just usually use the 12-inch, so makes it easier, and it's just easier to handle. So, all right, so we got the 1 by 12 up. We're going to set that. Now, I like to do both of my my borders at the same time. So I don't have to, you know, do them each individually. So we're going to do them both at the same time. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to hit edit up here, and I'm going to hit duplicate. So that's the little squares right here. I'm going to hit duplicate, and then I'm just going to kind of move these together and leave a little space in between, because you'll need just a little space in between. And this particular hoop that I'm using is quite small, so I need to stay within about 3.5 to 3 and 3/4 inches apart. So I'll leave a little space in between. There's plenty of space there. Okay. And then I'm going to go down to the bottom here, and I'm going to hit my little select button, and I'm going to select all. So it has them both pink. And then I'm going to hit the little polka dot button here that it will go ahead and center them in the hoop. Okay. So I've got that done. I'm going to hit OK. So now I've got my two borders. So we can do both of these at the same time. And then when we get ready to do the flanges, since they're wider, this hoop isn't wide enough to do them both at the same time. So I'm going to go to an 8x12, and then we can do both of those in the same hooping. So it makes it a lot faster to do. So if you can do two at a time, it's awesome. Okay. So I'm going to go ahead and hit embroidery now. And what I want now is, I don't want to do just one border and then the other border. I'd like to do them at the same time. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to hit layout. I'm going to hit this little button right here. It looks like 3 spools of thread. That is the auto sequences. So it sequences my colors, and that way it'll put all the colors together. So then all of the first steps are together, all the second steps are together, all the third steps are together. Okay. So I really like that, because then I can just sequence my colors and see, now I've got both of my placement lines, because remember, the same 5 steps happen in all of the embroidery patterns. So the first step is going to be a placement line for the batting. The second step will be the tack down for the batting. Third step is going to be the placement line for the fabric. The fourth step is going to be the tack down line for the fabric, and the fifth step will be the quilting. Okay, so it makes it really easy when I can color sort. So they call it color sort. Well, it's like sequence the colors or color sort them. Okay, so I think they call it the color sort button, but it's this one right here. It looks like 2 blue spools and a white one. Okay, so I've got that checked so that everything is going to sew at the same time. Now, technically, and if you haven't done flanges and borders and done like border quilting, you might want to cut or print out the actual border instructions. And technically, what they tell you to do, and again, they tell you to cut your battings to a certain size, and I just use a chunk of batting, especially when I'm doing 2 of them together. And the other thing they tell you to do is to put shape flex on the back of your fabric. Well, honestly, I found that I do better without the shape flex on the back of the borders and flanges. And the flanges are they're a lot softer, so that when you go to finish the pillow at the end, I think the flanges are softer without the shape flex. So I don't put shape flex on my borders and flanges. Okay, and there's not enough stitching that it makes them pucker or anything like that, and the batting acts as a stabilizer. So I'm not going to put any shape flex on the back of the borders or flanges. If you want to, you can. It does say that in the instructions, but I very rarely do. Okay, so we've got these set up. We've got it we've got it color sorted. We've got it ready to go. So I'm going to bring this over. I've got my blue thread in my needle, just the bobbin thread in the bobbin. Let me get my book out of the way here. And the first step is going to be the placement line for the batting. So I'm just going to go ahead and sew out step number 1. Now, as we're doing these, what we're going to do is we're going to sew out the first one, and then we're going to take it out of the hoop, and we're going to continue on. And what we'll do is we will join these together, and you will not be able to tell where the first design stops and where the next one starts. So it's very easy to do. Doing the borders and flanges works really slick. So what I'll probably do is I'll do the first couple of hoopings for you, And then I will turn the camera off for a little bit, and I'll do a couple more because we're just going to continue on. And then we'll do the flanges. So you don't have to watch me do the same thing 4 times on each one. Okay, so it's getting our placement lines down here. I've got my chunk of my Hobbs batting here. So that we're ready to do the next step. Sorry, I've got a frog in my throat today. Have a drink of tea. Maybe that'll help. Okay. So there's our placement lines for our batting. We're going to put the batting down. I'm going to cover both of those areas with the batting. Okay. And then step number 2 is going to be the tack down line for the batting. This is my favorite part. I love doing the borders and flanges. It goes real quick. It's not hard. And you can kind of sit and watch TV and relax while you're doing them. And then I like to do them though all in one piece because I found that I like to trim them the size that they need to be when I'm doing my assembly, because then I know they're going to fit really well. If you cut them the size that they said in the instructions by accident, that is fine. But you will, I'll tell you when we get ready to put it together in the next video, if you did that, how to avoid them not fitting correctly. Okay. So normally I just cut them, and I find that I do better with that way. Goes around these twice, so it takes a minute to get around these. Got my machine turned up pretty fast. I like to sew along right at a good clip. So I think it's about 800, but it only goes just so fast. So when we're doing these little tack down lines, and then we'll trim our batting, of course. Okay, we're getting them in there. So you can see okay. Find my scissors. But no, I've done a lot of borders this way and a lot of flanges for the square pillows. I just love the flanges. So, but then we'll do the filler blocks at the end, and I'll show you how to do that other method of block by block quilting, because those are already cut to the size we need them. Okay, so we're going to trim these, and then we always trim our batting. Okay, so we'll trim our batting. And then the next step will be the placement line for the fabric. Give me a second here. I might have to pull this out so I can get to it up here. Now the placement line for the fabric is very important for this method because the fabric is cut to the correct width. So we're not going to be trimming that down. So you do really, that line will become very, very important here in a minute, so that we can get our fabric in the right place so it's straight. And then I'll show you my little trick that I found. I found that in the instructions it talked about using tape to tape down your fabrics, and I struggled with the tape because it would let go on me, and so I'll show you what I do. Second here, I'm having trouble. This is a long hoop and it's hard to turn in the machine, so I apologize here. I have to kind of get up the middle. It's quite a trick learning to trim with a camera between you and the machine and to try to trim in the machine. I'm better at trimming. What I usually do with these is I like to take them out of the machine and set them on my cutting table to trim, but I stand up and do that, but I like you to be able to see what I'm doing. So, all right, we're going to get this trimmed. And if it's not perfectly neat, no one's going to see it. Okay. All right, so there's our 2 batting strips tacked down. So the next step is going to be the, whoops, second here, make sure that's in there, placement line for the fabric. So this is that important line. We're going to need this, and I'll show you why here in a second. We're going to do both of these strips at the same time. I love the little color sort, but because it makes it so much easier to do this. You used to have to, you could do it, like do 2 at a time, but then you had to do one side and then the other side. So this way it does both sides at the same time. So it makes it faster. So hopefully I'll eventually run out of this blue thread. I've had this blue thread forever. In fact, this may be the only light blue thread I've ever had since I switched back to Brother. And it doesn't seem like it's ever going to quit, but it's still going. I know it's going to get it through at least part of these borders. So, okay, so there's our placement lines. So in the instructions in the border instructions for the quilting, if you printed those out, it does say to, so I'm going to pull this out so you can see it. It does say at this point to roll a piece of tape up and put it at the top and at the bottom. Well, I really struggled with that. So this is what works better for me. I take my Sew-Line glue stick, the little narrow one that's like 1/4 of an inch. Okay, I take that and I'm going to put some glue across the top of the first one. And when I'm doing these in the machine, I kind of have to do one at a time. And I'm going to take the top of my strip, and I do have the selvage, so make sure that you've got a little room, above the selvage. And I usually put it about 1/4 of an inch above that line, so that I don't get my selvage in my pretty border. Okay, so I'm going to put that up, and I'm going to stick it down to the stabilizer. I'm going to flip this back, okay? And they say, I think in the instructions, 1/2 inch, but I usually do about 1/4 of an inch. But I do have some selvage up there, so I did it a little bit more, okay? And then I'm going to take my glue stick, and I'm going to run it between the batting and that placement line all the way up. And I'm going to do it on both sides, like that. And that really helps, because then with the tape, I only had it grabbing at the top and the bottom. And I'm just going to stick this down to my stabilizer in between those placement lines all the way down. And then it's stuck all the way down to the bottom. And I didn't have to worry about it scooting in the center. Because I remember the first borders I did with the tape, it scooted in the center, so then my borders kind of looked like curly, and they were wavy. And this works so well with just sticking it down to the stabilizer. Okay, so then we got the tail down here. We're going to continue on. So don't get your tail in your stitching. Okay, so let's do the other one now. So I like to do these one at a time when I'm working in the machine. If you're getting up and doing these, like at a cutting table, you can do them you can do them both at the same time. But I usually get something stuck together or something. Okay, so we're going to stick this up here. Watch where my selvage is right here. Make sure that's a little bit above that line. Get them lined up, stick it down. Okay, flip it up. And then we're going to take the glue between the batting line and the placement line for the fabric, just down each side. And then we're going to stick the border down. And again, I did not put shape flex on these. You can if you want. I think they're just fine without it. And to me, I think the flanges lay nicer. They're not quite so stiff then. So I don't normally put shape flex on my borders. And it's just kind of hard to cut the shape flex. Shape flex is narrow, and then you have to cut it and make it long. And I usually don't put it on. So it's up to you. All right, so we're going to stick that down. I've got our 2 borders stuck down. I got the tails down here, so make sure they're not stuck in your hoop or underneath. And then the next step is always our tack down line for the fabric. So it's going to tack these 2 pieces of fabric down now. And since they're nicely tacked down with the glue, I don't have to worry about them scooting on me. because I really had a hard time with that first set that I did, because I did it the way it said in the instructions, and the tape just, you know, didn't hold it quite enough, and it kind of rolled, and they got all wavy on me. So I really like the little glue stick. So these Soline glue sticks are up on the website on shieldsewingscenter.com, and they're called Sureline glue sticks. They have refills. We have refills up there too. And these are nice because they're narrow. You know, the Dritz glue sticks work too if you don't have one of these and you have a Dritz glue stick. That works fine. But they're a little wider, so these work easier to go through that narrow 1/4 inch area. It's kind of warm out of my sewing room. This is evening, and this is the time of year when the sun starts getting warm in here in the afternoon. And then I come home and it's like 78 degrees in my sewing room, so I'm like, ah. So I have to have a fan running all the time. So hopefully the fan's not too loud. All right, so it's got our border, got our fabrics tacked down. And then, of course, the last step is always the quilting. So now we're going to quilt our little borders here. Okay. And they did kind of matching thread on these, so that's what I decided to do. That's what they kind of said to do, and I thought, well, we'll just match them. And these are kind of like little leaves, sort of. And you'll be able to see the texture. You won't really see the color, but you'll see the texture in them. So it makes it really fun to do these. These are easy to do. Once you kind of get the hang of it and start working on them, they go really quickly. And especially if you do 2 at a time, because then you can do both of them at the same time. And so I like doing the borders and flanges. They usually, you know, make up quickly, and they look so cute when they're done. And then everything's all quilted in advance. Okay, so then it's going to go up the other side. So it's like the little stems with the leaves all the way up and down. And I think you'll be able to see them. You'll definitely be able to see the texture when you go to put it together. And you could have done some other color if you wanted. You could have made it more of a color difference. But I have a tendency to quilt, like the rest of the top is quilted fairly, neutral. So it's neutral to the background. So I figured I'd do these this way too. Kind of stay with the plan. So hopefully you probably see cat toes over here. My cat decided she's going to come up and help me tonight. I haven't been home for a couple of nights, so she's been following me around the house since I've been home tonight. I've been working on my father's house and talking to realtors and all kinds of stuff, so I haven't been home for the last couple nights because I've been up there working on house stuff. So I think she's was wondering where I was. So it's going to go down this side and then go back up the other. I really like that I can do both of them at the same time. Makes it quick. And maybe I'll get rid of this spool of thread with these finally, because I bet it's going to do most of it actually. Won't do all of it, but it'll probably do at least 2 or maybe 3 hoopings. What are you doing? Sorry, she's being a helper. I have all my stuff sitting on her mat, so if I move my stuff, she might sit down. Can you go over here and sit down? There you go. She doesn't like it when I set things on her mat. Yeah. Okay. That's going to be really cute. And then my fabric has just a little bit of a floral, like a little floral or flowery leafy design in it too. So that'd be cute. All right. So there's our first hooping. Okay. So the trick with these then, of course, we want them to look like they're continuous and that they don't stop. So we're going to take this out of the hoop, and I can just press my little buttons on the end here, and I'll pop this up. And then what we're going to do is we're going to trim these out of the hoop. Oops, second here. We're going to trim these out of the stabilizer. And I usually, you can get up and use your rotary cutter if you want. I just usually grab my scissors and just cut up along the edge of the fabric. I find it faster. I'm a little dangerous with a rotary cutter, so I just usually do these sitting here at the sewing machine with my scissors. So oops, if I can get a hold of it though. There we go. So we're just going to trim these out of the stabilizer. My scissors have a really pointy point on them, and I keep catching it on something. There we go. Now the other reason I like to use this hoop is that when I'm doing these narrow borders, there's actually enough for that piece of stabilizer that I have to do the other half. So then I use only half as much stabilizer. So I like that. If you use an 8x12 hoop, you basically have to use a whole piece of stabilizer. So I like this, the one I can do it this way. All right, so I'm going to pull these back where they're at the top, and I'm just going to trim off the batting or the stabilizer, and I'll do the same thing down here. So I'm just pulling the tail back. Don't cut your tail off. You know, don't cut your fabric, but just cut the stabilizer off of there because we need to get that out of the way. I'm going to trim down along the edge of the fabric here. Okay, that one. Got one more to do here. Hopefully I won't drop these all on the floor. This is the part that takes me the longest, is just getting it trimmed. I'm just going to trim along the top here. All right, down the edge. Probably can't see me very well. Careful, don't cut your fabric. We're going to pull this back. You want to trim right up the batting. So when you're close to the batting, that really helps when you go to do the next step. Okay, so here's my other piece of stabilizer then for my hoop. So I'm just going to pop this. Pop this stabilizer right into my hoop here. Just the right size for my little hoop, and I'm going to slip my little tabs down, and I'm ready to go again. Okay, so now what we're going to do is we're going to go back, and we just leave the same two designs in just as they were. They're still color sorted. Excuse me, they're still color sorted. And step number one, again, is going to be the placement line for the batting. So we're going to go back to that. And I've got my two pieces again here with one piece of quilting on them. I'm going to grab my piece of batting. I'll find the place I can lay it down. I think this will work. We'll do the two placement lines first. It's like I got a bunch of threads in here. Yeah, I don't know. We may make it one more hooping with this spool of thread. Then I've got a new spool, so we can put that one in. It is almost empty, and this is one of those ones I have to lay it down because that, you know, I don't know if you can see it up here. I have to lay this one down because it has that little thing at the bottom that won't shut, and boy, those just catch terrible. So I do, and I don't put a cap on it. As you can see, there's no cap. If you have to lay these down, it's fine, but don't put the caps on them because then otherwise you'll be breaking needles left and right. All right, so now I'm ready for our batting. I'm going to lay my batting down, cover those two areas, and then we're going to do the placement line again. Get it laid out here kind of straight. There we go. Looks like I got thread all over the table. This is when the chunks of batting really come in handy because you can do both sides at the same time, and you don't have to try to like lay two little strips in there, and this works so much better, and then you don't have to cut so much. I just really I'm not a big fan of cutting, and so when I do these the batting part, I don't like to have to trim that to the size because I still had to trim it anyway. Like, you know, I cut them, the first ones I cut them, And I still had to trim it down because it was, they had to cut it bigger. And I thought, well, I might as well just trim it in a hoop because it's so much faster. All right, so there's the first one. We'll get the second one in here. And then I'll show you how to connect these little borders together. And then you do the same thing 2 more times. It's very easy. So I'll probably do the other 2 off camera when I get these. So I'll show you how to do this part. And then you just take them out and trim again, just like I did this one, but this time you've got 2 hoopings in there. And then we'll start the flanges and show you the flanges. And I'll do a couple hoopings of that on camera, and then we'll go to our filler blocks. These don't take too long. Once you kind of get going, and they go along pretty quick. And my scissors. Okay. So now we're going to trim the batting. We're going to trim the batting close to the stitches. And then we have our placement line for the fabric again. Sometimes I'm kind of messy when I trim the batting. It doesn't have to be beautiful. It's all underneath. So I try to get as close to the stitches as I can, but sometimes I'm not very neat when I trim the batting. All right, get that out of our way. Then we're going to go between the centers here. Trim those out. Maybe, if I can get a hold of it. It's harder to turn the hoops and when they get longer. I like to use the smaller hoops when I'm trimming in the machine for people to see. This is a little bit, these are a little longer, so it's a little harder to trim. Okay. All right, so there is our 2. It was kind of messy, wasn't I? Cleaned it up a little bit. Goodness. Okay, there we go. Now we're ready for our placement line for the fabric. So that's always step number 3. Get that ready, and then we're going to be ready to put our borders back in. Once you kind of get on a roll with these, they just move right along. They're easy to do. Gigi's decided to relax now. She's on her, I got her little wool mat all uncovered for her, so now she's happy. She comes up and sits like over here on the edge of my embroidery unit and kind of looks at me with, disgust until I get her little spot open for her. We sit a lot in here, don't we, bud? She likes to help me. All right, so we're getting our borders again, or our placement lines. All right, so the trick with this is you want to fold these back to where, this is the top where we put this in first, okay? And fold the tail, this is the unquilted part, put the tail up, and we're going to butt those 2 pieces of batting right up to each other, okay, at the top. So let me pull this out so you can see what I'm doing. I'm going to turn it this way so you can see. And I'll do these one at a time, okay? So I've got this turned back. Here's the hole, and it's going to go down. The unquilted part's going to go down. And I'm going to take that glue stick again, like this, okay? We're going to try to get that batting, those 2 pieces of batting, butted up real close together and stuck down with the glue. Make sure I got it pretty straight here. Let's see. Got a little off. Pull it over this way just a little bit. There we go. Okay, get it pushed down. And then I'm going to take my glue and I'm going to run it along my between the placement line and the batting, all the way down on both sides. And then we're going to stick the unquilted part down between the borders. Okay, so make sure you get it, whoops, lined up. I think I scooted a little bit there. There we go. And then right down between those two lines, push it down. Like that. Sure, I've got these nice and lined up here. It feels pretty good. Okay. And that's why I like to do this one at a time. It does work better for me to do this one at a time, especially when I'm working in the machine here. So then we'll put this all the way to the bottom. Okay, in between our placement lines. Got it all stuck down. So then we'll do the other one. I'm going to do the same thing. I'm going to take my glue stick, run it across the top here. I'm going to take my border and I'm going to fold it back so I can expose that where that batting is there. And I've got, this is the long piece that's going to go down, okay? I'm going to lay this in and we're going to butt those two pieces of batting right up to each other and stick it down in the glue like that. And then I'm going to take my glue stick and I'm going to run down between the batting and the placement line on both sides. Now I'm going to flip this down and stick it right down in between those placement lines on both sides. All the way down. There we go. Get it stuck down. Okay. So just be careful when you go to put this back in. You know, you got stuff hanging off the top and off the bottom, so don't get anything stuck in your machine. So I'm just going to try to get this flipped over here and get these stuck under your needle. Looks like I unthreaded my needle, so I'll thread my needle here. There we go. All right, stick those back in. Make sure everything's stuck down okay. Make sure these are not going to get stuck anywhere. And then I'm going to rethread because I unthreaded my needle here. And then step number 3 is going to be the tack down lines for the fabric. So I'm just going to make sure everything stays put up here, just like it. It looks pretty straight. So the glue really helped me. I tried it with the tape a few times because I did. I think the first borders I did maybe were with the in this method were with the Love Notes quilt maybe. I think I did a wall hanging and I did it with this, and I really struggled with those because they wanted to scoot around on me. And then I thought, well, Jan, just glue them because the glue really works. The little fabric glue. And I don't just use regular glue. This is Soline. This is a fabric glue, so it's not going to gum your needle up. And it washes away. You know, like if you wash this, it would wash it away if there's any residue left. And I've used this for years. And these little pens are so nice because they're narrow and they fit in that little space nicely. You don't have glue all over that way. Ooh, I don't know if we're going to have enough to even quilt these. We'll have to see. I may run out of thread in the middle of one of my borders here. Okay, so it's going up the other side, and then the last step is always the quilting. So the last step will be the quilting. So I'm going to start step number 5. All right. Oops, second here. I got some threads sticking up here. Not to get caught. I don't know. I don't know if I'll make it or not. I may only make one. May have to stop and change the thread here in a minute. So it's going down the one side. This actually sews out really quickly because it kind of goes down one side and then up the other side. So I like that. So we got a couple more hoopings to do yet. And like I said, I'll probably just do 2 hoopings, and I'll show you how to get it started, and then I'll do those off camera, and then we'll come back and we'll do the flanges and do a couple hoopings on that. So It's going to go back up the other side. I like this design. My thread does match quite well. You probably can't see it too well in the video, but I know you're going to be able to see the texture in it. When you go to put it together, you'll really see it. It's amazing how this we talked about the batting, the Hobbs batting. It's 80-20, so it's got a little bit of polyester in it, and so it's nice and lofty. And I really, really like when I see the nice indent. That's what you see in the quilting, and so much of the stuff I quilt is kind of neutral. It's kind of tone on tone, but you can still really see where it goes together. And boy, I must have gotten that pretty lined up, because you can't even tell where it started and stopped. My goodness, I did pretty well. So you can't really even tell. That's cool. I like this one. This is similar to one that I did on another pillow, maybe the Christmas one, actually. But it's got 2 lines in the middle instead of just 1. I think the other one just had 1 line down the middle of the leaves. I've got a lot of these designs now. I really like doing the borders this way. They go pretty quick. It's almost done with some one side. Ooh, I might make it. It's gonna be thread chicken, everybody. We're playing thread chicken. Look at what's left. Do you think I can make it up the other side? It's gonna be close. I'm finally gonna be rid of this spool of thread, I think. Finally. I think this was in my original set that I got of my brother after I started using it again, and I've been using it for a couple of years probably. I use blue quite often, but yeah, I don't know. I think we might make it. It's going to be close. Gonna be close. I thought you'd get a kick out of watching this. We all play thread chicken, don't we? Oh my gosh, we made it. Look, there's just a little bit left. Look at there. We made it, and it's done. So there's the second hooping. Okay, so got that all done, and then we're going to do the same thing. I'm just going to pull this out, open this up, and then I'm going to trim these again, just like I did. I'm going to trim the batting out. Just be careful not to trim your ends. Don't trim through your fabric. I'm going to trim my batting out, and then I'm going to do the next 2 hoopings the exact same way. So I'm going to start with my placement line, put my batting down, and then I'm going to put my placement line for my fabric, glue this down, and then I'm going to continue on. There's 2 more hoopings to do on these 2 strips, okay? So I'm going to trim this out. I'm going to go ahead and stop the camera for a little bit. I'm going to do a couple more hoopings, and then I'll come back and show you what they look like when they're done. And then we'll go ahead and do the flanges, do a couple hoopings on the flanges. But that's how you do borders. They're pretty easy. Borders and the bigger borders are done the same way. They're just wider. So I'm just going to trim these out. And just be careful not to trim either end of your fabric. You don't want to trim your fabric out. Oops, just wonk the camera. Trim along there, and then I'll just trim out the other end. Okay, so this is pretty easy to do. Once you get the hang of it, it's very easy. Now all these instructions are in the border, the border quilting design that you purchase. So you can, if you need to look at the pictures, you can do that also. But these are, we've done this a few times now, so I think a lot of you have done this at least one time. And it does go pretty quickly once you get going. And I like doing them 2 at a time because then they go faster. All right. So trim this out, and then I'm going to be ready for a 3rd hooping. So this one, each one of these is going to take 4 hoopings. Both of the designs will take 4 hoopings. And I'll have to have another piece of stabilizer for this one. So there's my first 2 hoopings. So I'm going to go ahead and I'm just going to pause the camera for a little bit while I work on the next 2 hoopings, and I'll come on and show you what it looks like, the whole thing all quilted. So there's my first 2 hoopings. And again, this is where we'll end. You know, we'll fold this back, and this is what we'll then stick at the top and then bring this part down. Okay, so I'm going to go ahead and do the next two hoopings, and I'll be back in a moment and show you the final product. Okay, so I did one more hooping, the third hooping on my borders, but I thought I'd better come on to do the last hooping just so you can see the difference. So these, I'm getting ready to put my strips back in. I did my batting placement line, my batting tack down line, and my fabric placement lines. But this last hooping is a little short, so we want to make sure that the foot of the machine doesn't doesn't slip underneath the fabric. So what I'm going to do with this is I'm going to start out just the same as I have, and this is the tail that's not quilted yet, okay? And then I'm going to go ahead and I'm going to put my fabric glue down as far as it goes. It goes almost down to the bottom. And then I'm going to slip this down between there, just like I have been doing, except it doesn't cover all of the batting. So, and I normally don't stop the machine. So what I do when I get down here, so I get this pressed down nicely. I might need to put just a little bit more glue on. I don't know if you can see it very well. Sorry, it's a little hard to show at the end here. So here's my end. You can see that it doesn't go all the way to the bottom of the batting. So I'm just going to put a little bit more fabric glue in here. I kind of made it a little short. Go down like that. Okay. And then I'm going to take some of the Kimberbell tape, and I'm going to tape, actually, I think I'm going to wait and put the other one in, and we'll tape them both together. But I am going to tape across the end so that so my foot of my machine doesn't like slip underneath the fabric. So let's put the other one in here. Okay. Get this, whoops, got to get the right end here. There we go. And put this in just like we did the other ones. But since they're just a little short, we want to make sure that nothing's going to happen. So we're going to glue this down, and then I'm going to go down with my glue on both sides, just like I did before. And stick this down. So everything's nice and stuck down. Okay, and then what we're going to do is I'm going to, at the bottom here where they're kind of short. Okay, I'm going to flip this around in the machine here so you can see what I'm doing. Maybe. These are kind of hard to maneuver, these longer hoops. So, okay, make sure everything's stuck down nice. Okay. So then down here at the bottom, I'm going to take a long piece of the Kimberbell tape, and I'm going to just put it over the bottom like that. And I'm going to make sure it's stuck down really tight, because you know what? Those feet can still go underneath the tape. So make sure the tape's really stuck down where it's going to go over that. Otherwise, they can still go right underneath that tape. That's why I don't usually tape, but in this case, that's really the only option when you get to this last hooping, is to go ahead and tape. So that way we know it's not going to get underneath, hopefully not get underneath that foot. I have had it get under the tape even. So I usually kind of watch it when it goes down over here. But that way I don't have to stop the machine when it's going over. I can just turn my head and let it sew. But normally it's better after it goes over and does the tack down line, because it seems like it holds it down a little better. But I do have to kind of watch that tape a little. So this is the last hooping, the fourth hooping on the borders, and then we'll do the flanges the same way, the wider ones. So I'll come back on and do those. But I wanted you to see me put these in and then tape across the bottom. So anytime you've got an open end here, make sure you tape it down so that your foot doesn't get stuck. Most of the time it does pretty well, but I have had it get stuck. So just watch it. And I don't use tape on like the quilting either. Sometimes they tell you to put tape like on the edges of your quilt when you're quilting with the clear blue tiles, and that does not work for me. So I zigzag it down, but I normally can get by with this small amount here. Okay, so then it's going to do the quilting, just like we did before. Okay, but I wanted to show you that little trick for trimming, or for doing the tape down at the bottom there, so it holds it in place for you. So here it's going to go and do the last part of the quilting. So I'll pause the camera and come back when it's all done, and I'll cut them out so you can see the whole thing, and then we'll start working on the wider flanges. Okay, so here's my 2 blue borders, and what I did at the bottom, there was just the tape was on the bottom, and I just went ahead and cut off where the little selvage was. So I just cut that off on the bottom, and I still got a little selvage up here. And so before I go to get ready to trim this, or to put these together, I'll just trim that off a little bit. Just trim it off a little bit at the top. There we go. So there's my 2 blue borders that are going to finish off 1 inch wide when they're done. And now we're going to go on to the 2.5 inch flanges. So give me a second to reset up to do the bigger ones, and we'll be back to do some flanges. Okay, so now we're going to do the flanges, which finish at 2 inches, so they're cut 2.5. And we're going to do them the same way. There's going to be 4 hoopings again, but this time we're going to use a wider border design. So it's still in the same set of borders. It's going to be in that Border Spring 2. So let's go grab that. I did put an 8x12 hoop in the machines because they're a little wider now. So Border Spring, let's see here. Plant, we're getting closer. S, Spring 2, Border Spring 2. And then we're going to use the 2 inch width. So it's going to be, I'm going to choose the 2x12 in this case. So 2x12 is right. 2x10, 2x12. So this one's going to have the cute little, oh, it's got the little bird houses on it. How cute. So it's got like the little birdhouse and the flower and the little butterfly on it. So how cute is that? So we're going to hit set. And I'm going to do the same thing with this one. I'm going to do 2 of them at a time. So I'm going to hit edit. I'm going to duplicate it with the duplicate button, and then I'm just going to kind of pull it over here, leave just a little space in between. Okay, and then I'm going to go down to the bottom of my screen here and hit select all, which is the pink, and then I'm going to hit the center button to get them centered there, and it just left a little space in between. Got plenty of width, or plenty of length, plenty of width. So I'm going to hit OK. I'm going to hit embroidery. So we got both of them at the same time. We're going to do the same thing with these. We're just going to do 4 hoopings. The first hooping will be just the first hooping. We'll put the whole strips in. I've got my width of fabric strips here. And then we will continue on down. So I think what I'll do is I'll do some of the sewing, and then I'll come back on again. We'll do a little bit. I won't leave the camera on the whole time because these are done the same way as the last ones we did. They're just wider. So let's go ahead and just get started though. We'll do the placement line for the batting. Got them both in there. Oh, you know what I forgot to do though? I forgot to do the, you're supposed to be watching me, everybody. I forgot to do the color sort. So let me go back to the beginning here. There we go. I hit the negative positive needle and hit the 0 to go to the back of to the beginning of the pattern, because it wouldn't let me use color sort when I started the pattern, even just 1 stitch. So I'm going to hit that button now. So now it's going to color sort it. Hit layout again, and see now it's going to do all the placement lines, all the tack down lines, and so on. Okay, so we got that done. I'm going to start this, and we're going to start our placement line for our batting. I have white thread in my bobbin. I have an 8x12 hoop. This is and I've got no-show mesh in the hoop. And I have my white thread in the bobbin now. So we're going to do these in white. That's a really cute design. It's got all the little elements from it's even got the pinwheels on it. That's cute. So that's really cute. I like it. So we'll get these going here. So let me get these out of our way so we won't get them stuck in the hoop or something. Do our placement lines, put our batting down. So I'll probably do a couple of hoopings with you on camera, and then I will turn the camera off and come back and show you the end of it. And then we'll do the little filler blocks at the end. So these are really fun. They don't take too long once you kind of get going. But there's 8 hoopings, and then I've got 4 filler blocks, but I'm not sure. I might be able to do all 4 of them in the same 8 by 12 hoop, so I might actually try that because I think they're about 2.5 inches wide, maybe 3. I'll have to see. I can't remember how big the little filler blocks were. So I'll have to go see. We might be able to do them all in one hooping. That'd be kind of nice. All right, so I've got my chunk of batting here. I'm going to put this chunk of batting over the whole area, both of the 2.5 inch areas. And these were cut 2.5, but they're going to finish at 2. And then we'll tack down our batting just like we have been doing. So step 2 is always the tack down for the batting. They always have such cute designs for their borders and stuff. So it's kind of fun to get the ones that they make for them, because they usually have elements of the blocks in the borders and the flanges then, but you don't have to. It would be just as cute with some other design on the edges. So if you didn't want to buy them, you don't have to. I just usually get them when I make, especially when I make the video, so you can see the actual designs they made for them. So yeah, so I think what I'll do is we'll go through the first hooping together, and then I will show you, I'll put the fabric in for the second hooping, and then I'll just turn the camera off for a little bit, and we'll do the last part of the hooping, together, because I think everybody will understand. We've done this several times now, so I think people are starting to understand this procedure. It's pretty easy to do. I don't get to use 2 hoopings out of 1 piece of stabilizer though this time. I have to use a whole piece. So I'll have to use 4 pieces of stabilizer. I go through a lot of stabilizer, this mesh stabilizer. Go through a lot of it because I do a lot of these types of projects that you use the batting in it. So, and the other thing I wanted to tell everybody is when you're using this much batting, I sew through batting a lot, and it's a little bit on the linty side. So make sure you're cleaning your machines regularly, because cleaning out underneath the bobbin cases and stuff, because boy, do they get linty with this batting. And I sew through batting like all the time. All right, so we're just about around the second side. Then I'll trim. Those are really cute. I really like the design. Okay, so let's go ahead and trim the batting all the way around, both pieces. I think I've had the same chunk for the entire pillow so far, so I might actually, I'm not sure, I may have to get another little chunk for the last hooping, because I don't know if it's going to do all these big ones, but I had just one. I mean, I've done pretty well using the same chunk for the whole thing. So don't forget to go up through the center. Yep. I'm not very neat when I trim these. I try to trim fast so you don't have to watch me trim too long. But the fabric covers it up. Who's ever going to see it? No one's going to see it. I do try to keep pretty close at the top though, where I have to put the, the other border in, the next hooping in, so that it's pretty flat up there. Okay, so now we're going to do step 3, which is the placement line for the fabric. Oops. Wiggled the camera. I have a dark blue shirt on tonight, and I'm covered in batting. Almost looks white. Okay, I'm just going to hop over and do the other one. I've got to find my glue stick again. Where'd it go? I spend most of my life looking for my scissors and my glue sticks. Somewhere it has disappeared again. Oh, I found it. It's on the floor. Everything lands on the floor here. Okay, I found it. All right, so then we're going to put in the fabric like we have been doing. So let me turn this around so you can kind of see what I'm doing here. So we're going to put our fabric glue stick. And like I said, these Sew-Line glue sticks are on the ShieldSewingCenter.com website, and there's refills up there too. But these work really great for this. All right, so then I'm going to put now there is a selvage on these too, so I'm going to put it a little above the selvage so that I don't have selvage in my, in my border. Or this is a flange actually is what they call it. So I'm just going to get that stuck down well. We'll flip this back and then we'll put our glue down the sides here between the batting and the placement line. I go through a lot of glue doing these because you do have to use a little bit. I mean, you have to be a little generous with it so that it sticks down really well. You don't want it to move while it's doing the tack down line. Okay, so get this set down. And the tail's at the bottom, so I've just got the little, the little top of it up there, and then the tail's at the bottom. So be careful putting it in your machine that you don't get the tail underneath the hoop and get it all sewn in together, because ask Jan how she knows about that one. I did that with one of my first ones. I was like, whoops. Actually, I think I had already quilted some, and I got the one up at the top underneath. So it's easy to do. All right, get these all stuck down really well. Okay, and let's do the other one. These longer ones are harder. These wider ones are a little harder to do, to show you. So I'll do some of these off of the camera. So because this is exactly like the short one. I like to demonstrate with the short ones, the narrow ones, because it's just easier. The hoop works in the machine a little bit better than this one does. All right, so I'm gonna put that about half an inch or so. I want to make sure that I get that selvage up out of the way up there. Okay, and then we're going to put our glue down through between the batting and the placement line on both sides. Whoops. Like that. Slip that down into the placement lines and glue it down to the stabilizer. And of course, step number 3 is going to be the placement line, or the tack down line, I'm sorry, for the fabric. And we'll tack it down, and then step number 5 will be this is step number 4, and then step number 5 will be the quilting, just like all the other ones. All right, get this up in here. Just leaving my white thread in, and I am going to kind of watch these. I always kind of watch them to make sure they stay put, they don't move around on me. So we'll go over and do the other side. Yeah, I think the color they must have done, it looks like it might be like a slightly like a cream or beige, but I just used the white because that's what I've done on the other ones. You're definitely going to be able to see the texture on the flanges. So even in the white, I mean, I could have done it. I thought about doing them in reverse. I thought about doing the white on the border and the blue on the flange, and that would be probably really pretty too. But I don't like, I don't know, I don't like my quilting to be too popping out at me. But I think that's the way they kind of did it. So I thought, well, we'll just do it this way, and if we don't like it, I can always do the borders over, can't I? So, but at least I've shown you how to do them, and even if I decide to do them again. which I did in the Valentine pillow. If you remember, I did the Valentine pillow. I did them in white, and then I went back and did them in red, and I really liked them in red. But I think these will be fine. These are very busy borders, so I think if you got them too bright, I think it would be really maybe a little over the top. So I think these will be fine. So it's got butterflies and flowers and birdhouses. Yeah, it's got like all the little elements. But you'll be able to see the texture definitely. It's always hard to know what to do the quilting in. And I have a tendency to do quilting. I'm very neutral with quilting. I usually like it to kind of blend in. And so with this type of quilting, it's hard for me to decide sometimes what I want it, if I want it to really stand out or if I just want it to blend in. So this fabric is a little bit on the wild side. So I thought I'd probably better blend a little bit because I was afraid it would be over the top. So we'll see how it looks. And if we don't like it, like I said, I can always do them again, can't I? That's why it's fun to do these with you for the first time for me too, because sometimes I don't like what I do and then I go back and do it again. So you see that sometimes that I do that too, which I did with the Valentine pillow. I did another set of borders. I did, or the flanges. I think the borders I left alone, but the flanges I did again. But I think these will be fine. I can definitely see the texture. So there's a lot of stitching in this one, and so I was afraid if I got it too bright, that's all you'd see is the stitching and not the fabric. So I think this will be fine. They've got they even got the little pinwheels and everything. They're cute. But yeah, if you look at the, oops, there goes my scissors again. If you look at the instructions here, you can see up here they're showing the colors. So they showed the blue for the border and the kind of white for the flange. So now the filler blocks, they kind of did like a matching tone-on-tone color for the fill instead of white. So I am going to try that and see if I like it. There was like 4 blocks in there. Yeah, 4. So I thought I'd do the matching colors just to see if I liked it. So that's kind of what they did in the instructions. So we'll do it that way. Yeah, I think that's going to be good because you can really see it. It's doing the flower again, and then it's going to do another little birdhouse at the bottom here. My border doesn't pop up there. All right, so I'm just going to go over and do the other one. But yeah, you can definitely see it. Can you see the outline of everything? I mean, you can really, when I'm looking at it, I can really see it. So I think it'll be fine. Because it really shows on the picture. I was looking at the picture real close, and you cannot see the quilting on these at all. So they must have done them in, like almost a very neutral color. So, and their fabric, their yellow maybe was, I can't really tell. I wonder if it's their plain yellow instead of the print. I had a little bit of a print, and theirs might be the plain. It's a little hard in the picture to see. And then they had a little print similar to what I had on the blue, the little smaller borders, and these flanges were done in I think in a plain. They have a lot of new plain fabrics, and I don't have all of them, and I just happened to have this in my stash, and I thought, well, this would look okay. All right. So I think we're gonna do this hooping, and then I'll come back on. I'll pause for a minute while I trim it out, and then I'll show you how to get started on the second hooping, and then I will be back to do the last hooping with you on these, because these are going to turn out neat. I do like their quilting designs. And you might have been able to do something a little darker. I don't know. My fabric had this print though, and I don't know if I'd like it or not. I think it'll be fine in the whites. I always second guess myself. I always think, oh, I'll certainly like it that way. And then, you get it done, and you're like, maybe I should have done it that way. But we'll see. If I don't like them when I'm done, I'll just do another set. And when I get ready to put them together in the next video, you'll see in a different color. So it's always hard to decide what to do. You look at them and you think, oh my gosh, that'll be just perfect, and then you do it and you're like, maybe not. But this fabric has quite a lot of print in it, so I think if I put it too dark, I think I might not like it. Everything else is pretty neutral, so. Okay, so it's getting down to the end here. It's doing the last little flower, and then it's going to do a little birdhouse again. And you could have done like the blue ones. You could have done the blue ones in the yellow and the yellow and the blue. And that might be pretty too. So I might actually do another set and see, because I know I've got some extra fabric for this. So I could do another set and we could look at it again later and see if we like it. Because that might be pretty to do just a little bit, the light blue on these and see. So that might be actually pretty to do the light blue. Not sure. What do you think? I like it. I mean, I like them. You can definitely see the texture in there. You can see what it is. You can see the birdhouses and you can see the butterflies, and you can definitely see what it is. So I think I'm going to go with this for now. And if I decide to do another set, I might just do another set and we can choose at the end. So, all right. This is usually the part that's hard for me to decide what I wanted to do with the borders and the flanges. So, and this would be pretty with the light yellow, I think. If you put the yellow in here, I think this would be pretty with the yellow too. And you could leave it blue and do them both in blue, or you could do this one in white and do this one in blue. So I don't know. I may do another set. We'll see. Okay, so I'm going to take this out now. I'm going to get these ready to do the second hooping, and then we'll come back and I'll get the second hooping started and then come back and do the last hooping with you. This is the second hooping, and I've got my batting tacked down. I've got my placement lines, and so now we're ready to put these back in for the flanges back in. So we can review how we did this. I'm going to do one at a time here. Put one glue across the top. I'm going to fold this up. Excuse me. I'm going to fold this tail up, and this is the top where we just got done quilting. So the non-quilted part is going to be tucked up here, and we're going to stick this down in between those lines just like we did our little narrow ones. And stick those down, and then I'll take my glue stick and I will go down between the batting and the placement line all the way to the bottom and get these stuck down, ready for the second hooping. Okay, whoops, got to get this folded down. Go. And get it all lined up in our lines here. This one's a little harder because it's so wide and the hoop's big to get this done. So I'm trying to get these all lined up nice and straight. Get this under the foot there. There we go. Sometimes I have to just kind of lay it up on the machine. This is a lot easier if you take this out and put it over like at your on your cutting table or someplace where you have a place to lay it out, because it's a little easier to get in and out. But I try to show this on the screen, so hopefully I'm doing okay. All right. Let's push down. Got that one in. Let's try to do the other one here. Ready for the second hooping. Across the top. I gotta find my other, here it is. Here's my other flange. The cat was laying on it. She likes to lay on everything I do, so we're gonna put this up in here. Got the little tail stuck up. I'm gonna come down this way. Get it stuck in there. like that. And we're going to take the glue and go down the sides. Way to the bottom. And then we're going to lay this second flange down. All right. Oops, here. Got twisted. Put this in. And then the third step, as usual, is going to be the tack down line. And then for the fabric, or the fourth step, I'm sorry. And then the fifth step will be the quilting. So get these all in here. Just be careful when you put it in the machine. You don't get anything caught. Do my tack down lines, and then I'll do my quilting for the second hooping. Just like that. So just like we did the narrower ones. Oops, gotta put my flipper down there, otherwise my green light doesn't come on. Okay, off it goes, and then I'm going to do the quilting. Then I'll do another hooping in a part of one, and come back and show you again that the taping on the bottom, so that you know that you don't have you get your foot stuck underneath, because there'll be a little bit of adding showing at the bottom of the last hooping. Okay, so we're ready for the last hooping on the flanges, and we're going to do the same thing we did with the borders, the little narrow borders, that we're going to have to tape these down because we don't want our foot to get stuck. So I'm going to go ahead and start putting these in. I ran out of glue stick in my pink glue stick, so I had to grab my white one here, so that's why all of a sudden my glue stick looks different. So let me see here. I'm going to pull this up, the little tail, so I've just got this little short tail now, and we're going to put this up here at the top. Get them nice and close, down in between the placement lines. And then, oops, there we go. And then I'm going to run the fabric glue down, again, the sides. And I won't go all the way to the bottom this time because it's not quite that long. So we'll go part this down about as far as we need to go there. And get these in. And then these I normally tape kind of separate because they're wide enough that I'm afraid that if I put a long piece of tape all the way across, then it might possibly catch. So I'm going to do these separately since these are a little wider. Let's do this one too. And then do the same thing here. Put this one in, put the glue at the top. Oh my goodness, everything's on the floor again. I spend most of my time, like I said, looking for my glue, looking for my scissors. Those are the two things that I'm always losing. And then I always am dropping things on the floor. And then they get like under my feet or they get under the machine and then I can't see them. So then I'm looking around like, where did they go? All right. This one's a little bit of a pain to get in, this last one, because I can't turn the hoop very well. So let me grab my glue here. Okay. So I'll put this down. Okay. And then pull it down in between our placement lines. Looks like I might need to go a little further down with my glue. Second, let's slip it under the foot there so it's laying flatter. There we go. Get it in here. Pretty good. I might need just a little bit more glue down here in a second. I got it stuck on my needle now, of course. That always happens at least once when I'm doing this. There we go. There we go. Okay, so let me put a little bit more glue down here. And then we'll tack this one down. So we're going to go ahead and put, I think I will put separate tapes on these. So I'm going to do, one on each side. I want it to go from side to side. So let's cover that like that white spot up, the selvage, but really push it down because sometimes it will still get under there. So I usually give it a good rub when I put it on because I've had that happen and it just tears everything out of the hoop. It's kind of annoying, but it has to happen occasionally. All right, so then we're going to put this back in the hoop. And I'm going to do my placement, our tack down lines. Oops, second here, I must have unthreaded my needle. You know, it always has to unthread at least once. There we go. All right, so then it's going to do the tack downs, and then it's going to do the quilting for the last hooping on our flanges. So we're getting just about done, and then we'll talk a little bit about those filler blocks. And I haven't decided how I'm going to do those, if I'm going to do them all in one hooping, or I need to find out if they're all the same design or if they're different designs. Let me see. We may do them in a couple hoopings. Maybe we could do two smaller hoopings, like in a 5x7 hoop or something. So not very long. They're about 2.5 or 3 inches wide, maybe 2.5. One's longer than the other ones. All right, so there's our tack down lines. Looks like everything's going okay. I always worry about it when I have tape on here. I always kind of hang out near the machine and watch it pretty close. And this machine, this is my Luminaire, and this machine's really strong. And I remember one of the first, like in the hoop projects I did with my Luminaire, it got caught on like the fabric over here in the corner. And oh my goodness, it bent the foot right off the machine. I mean, it's strong, and it pulled and it bent the foot right off the machine. I'm like, whoa. So I do kind of hang out when I'm doing this kind of stuff now, close to the machine. All right, so then it's going to do step number 5, the quilting. So I'll be back in a minute when this is all done, and I'll show you my 2 completed flanges and my 2 completed borders. Okay, so there's my 2 sets, my set of flanges and my set of borders. And I may very well sew out another set in a different color to see if I like them. I like these are fine, but you know, I might just want to see that cute border. It is very cute, and I'm thinking might have to try that in the blue for this one. I do really like it, and you can really see the, oops, second here. You can really see the impression of what it is, but I think maybe I might try another set. So we'll see what happens when I go to put it together. So you may see another set, and I'm thinking maybe these might be pretty. The blue ones might be pretty with yellow thread, or possibly even a mint green, like maybe the green of because it's leaves. So I could do white, I could do mint, I could do a little bit darker green because it's leaves, so that would be pretty. Even on the blue, the green would be pretty. So I don't know, we may see another set of borders and flanges when we go to put this together. So I'm anxious to see all of yours, to see what you choose for your colors and everything. So anyway, I just think things turned out really well. So all right, so now the last little thing we have to do is we're going to talk about those little filler blocks. So if you give me just a moment, I'll be back in a moment. Just have to finish getting my colors together, and then how I want to do them. I think we're going to do a couple at a time, because there's 2 that are done with the geometric quilting and 2 that are done with the spring quilting. So we'll probably do them in 2 hoopings. So give me just a moment. I'm going to get them ready so I can bring them up. Okay, so I'm looking at these, and there's 4 different blocks that are done. These are already cut to the size we want them. So like this one's cut to 2.5 by 6.5, and so it's going to finish 2 by 6. And then these, I believe, are cut at 2.5 by 4.5. Yeah, 2.5 by 4.5, and they're going to finish 2 by 4. And they did quilt them in like a matching color to the block. So I thought, well, I think maybe we'll just do these one at a time. So what I'll probably do is I will do the first one in the video for you. And then what I did is I kind of matched my colors. So I have this pink block. This is block number 2, and they used the dark pink, but I think I'm going to use the more matching pink, so that because I don't have, the other ones were done like with the really dark blue here. I don't think I'm going to like that. I think I'm going to use these kind of matching because the rest of the blocks are subtle on the inside, so I don't want these to like stick out too much, but they will be noticeable because they'll have a different color. So I'm going to kind of do them tone on tone. So block number 2 is the longer one. It's 2.5. Well, it was cut 2.5 by 6.5. And that one they do in the geometric 8. So this long one. And then the next block that's like this is number 7. So it's this one. And they did this one in spring 2. And then they did the next block, which is number 9. And that is this kind of striped one. They did that one in spring 2. So I'm going to do that in the gray. That kind of matches that. And then the last one is number 12. And it was done in the yellow, but they put kind of a green on it, so I think I'm going to put the yellow on it. So I kind of am going to do matching colors, I think. So we'll just do one, and we'll talk about each one bringing it up in the machine, because there's like the 2 that are geometric 8. You'll have to do, there's one that's horizontal, and they're both horizontal, so you're going to choose the horizontal. And they show that on page 37 in the book. So here's where I'm looking. So here's the one. We'll do this one in the video. Okay, so number 2. And then there's number 7, which is over down here. And then there's number 9, which is, where did it go? It's up here by the butterfly. And then there's number 12, which is over here under the butterfly. Okay, so the number 12 block, this one, and the number 2 block are done in the geometric pattern, and the other 2 are done in the spring. So we'll do one in the video, and then just watch your instructions here, and it tells you which ones to use. And if you don't want to use those, don't use them. Use different ones. But it tells you in here, and it kind of shows you the colors they used here. Okay. All right. So let's just do one of these. So these are done in block by block, but these are done in method 2. So what that means is these blocks are already cut to the size we need them. And so when we put I'm going to put my no-show mesh, and I'm going to use my 5x7 hoop for this one. And actually all 3 of these I'll do, all 4 of these I'll do in my 5x7 hoop. But this one is a little bit longer than the other 3. So we'll just do this one in the video. But when we do this, we're going to do this similarly to the way we just did our borders and our flanges, because they're already set. So that fabric placement line is going to be very important, because we need to put this fabric piece down right inside that so that it will fit. Okay, so it's going to be basically like the borders we just did. It's just going to be a block instead. So that one is going to be, let's go get this over here. This one is going to be geometric 8. So we're going to go get the quilting block by block, and this is geometric 8. So we're going to go get that. It's down here a little ways. Geometric, whoops, I just went past it, I think. Geometric 8. Whoops, I think that was 6. Let me go back to 8. Sorry, I think I missed it. Geometric 8. I have to be real careful, because sometimes this gets to going so fast I miss some. Floral food, we're getting close. Geometric 6, 7, 8. Here we go. And then this one is 2 by 6, but it's going to be the horizontal one. So let's see. 2 by 6. So there's a vertical and a horizontal. So it's going to be this horizontal one. So we're going to choose that one. So 2 by 6. Make sure we got the right one. Yeah, 2 by 6, this one, horizontal. So we're going to do that one. Okay. And this one I'm going to do in my matching pink. So I've got it all set. So let's do one at a time. Since I have to do different colors, it might be just easier to do one at a time. I thought about doing them all at the same time, and I thought, oh, it's going to be kind of hard with all the different colors. So we'll just do one at a time. And then I'll show them when they're all done. So this one is the biggest one. So we'll do this one first. And the first thing, of course, with our quilting is going to be the placement line for the batting. And I gotta go, oh, I gotta go find some more batting. My batting chunk was gone after we got done with that one, so I will have to go find another one here. All right, so we're going to put our batting in first. Okay, and I'm going to lay this over my placement line just like we did the other ones, but then this one's going to be a little different because the piece of fabric is the same size as the block. And there's only 4 of these, so they're easy once you get going. Get my scissors ready to do the trimming. So just follow the little chart on 37 and it tells you what to do with these. Okay, and then I'm going to trim this, and then of course the next step is going to be that placement line for the fabric, and that'll be important because we'll have to glue it down just like we did the borders. Get this one trimmed. Oops, there we go. So there's just the 4 of these. There's 3 kind of 2.5 by 4.5 ones, and 1 that was longer, 6 inches long. Okay, then the next step is going to be our placement line for the fabric. I'll get my glue stick ready. I found my glue stick refill. I needed a refill for my pink glue stick, so I got that done while I was finishing the end of my flange. Okay, so there's our placement line. So that's what's different about this is we're going to glue this down because this piece of fabric's already the right size. So I'm just going to put my glue, pull this out here, move these over just a little bit. We're going to put the glue down in between the border and the batting. And then we're going to lay this down right inside that border line. So just be careful that you get it lined up and glue it down. Get it all in there. And I noticed that this was some scraps, and I noticed this one was just a hair narrow on this one side, but I still think it'll be okay. I had some scraps, and I must have had just a little chink out of that little corner there, so... But I think it'll still be okay. I didn't have a whole lot of that fabric left. So, all right, so there's that. So I got it all glued into my little area where my placement line is. And now we're going to tack it down. And actually on these then, the tack down line would go right on top of the same. So we're just going to skip the tack down line. You don't need to do, so when it's with it glued, you don't need to do the tack down line. Because otherwise it's just going to sew around the outside edge again, and it doesn't make any difference. So I'm just going to go down to my negative positive needle here at the bottom, and I'm just going to skip through that one because we really don't need to sew that. And then it's just going to do the quilting. Okay, since there's no place, it's not going to catch it anywhere. It was just going to sew around the same spot. You can just skip that, and then it's going to do our quilting. I think it's kind of neat to do the matching thread. They said to put a darker one on there, but I wasn't sure if I'd like the darker colors on here because I thought they might kind of really pop out a lot, but I think these will be fine. I like the texture is so prominent in the blocks, so. But I'm still not sure about the borders and flanges. I'll let you'll see when I get ready to do the assembly video whether I did them over or not. I'll think about it overnight. Sometimes I have to think about it overnight, and then I do them over the next day sometimes. So, and I do that a lot. Sometimes that's why I usually do all my classes. I do the project first, and then I can decide, well, did I like that or did I not like that? So. But this time you get to help me choose. Okay, so we're getting this about done. I really like this geometric shape. Isn't it neat? And I think both of the ones done in geometric are horizontal. Yeah, that looks really cool. Okay, so it's all quilted. And then you're just going to trim it out. You can trim it with your rotary cutter, or in my case, I'll just trim it out with my scissors. And then you'll do the other 3 blocks the same way, but you can really see that little pattern in there. Isn't that neat? And then I'll do the other ones too. And I might try to do a couple at the same time, but the problem is they have different colors. So then you have to make the machine stop in between. So it's probably better to do these individually, since unless you're doing them all in the same color. So if you're doing in the same color, you could bring them in like we did the borders and duplicate, or bring it in and duplicate it. And in this case, there was just one that was a different size, so the other 3 would be the same size. But you might just need to bring in each one separately because they are 2 different quilting designs. So this quilting design is the geometric one, and the other 2, a couple of the other ones are going to be the other. So you could do maybe 2 at a time. But I think I'll just do them individually since they're all different colors, and then I don't have to change the colors. So, okay, so there's the first one. And then I'm going to do the other 2, the other 3, excuse me. So the next one is going to be filler block 2. Let's see, filler block 7. It's number 7 in the little chart. So it's this greenish one. So I'm going to do that one. And that one's going to be done in the spring design, and so is the kind of gray one. So these 2 are going to be done in the spring design, and then this one will be done in the geometric design when I get to that one. So I'll just probably do them all separately because then I don't have to change the colors. So that is how you do the filler blocks. Placement line, tack down line for the batting, trim your batting, placement line for the fabric, glue the fabric down just like we did the borders, okay, because it's the same size as the placement line. You can, the tack down line you can skip because it's just going to sew along the edge anyway, so it doesn't, you don't want to disturb the edge of it since you've got it glued down. And then just do the quilting, and then your block is done, so then it's ready to put into the pillow. So I'll come back in a moment to finish up, and I'll show you my other 3 blocks. I'm going to do those in the other colors, and then I will come back and we'll talk about getting the assembly video ready for the next video. So I just realized something as I was playing around with doing the next 2. I'm doing this one and this one. What I think I'm going to do is I am going to do 2 of them at the same time. And they come in like up and down like this. So I am going to hit the edit button now. I brought it in. This is the 2x4 spring 2. And so I'm just going to duplicate it, and I'm going to bring it over here like we did the border. You'll leave a little bit of space in between. And then I'm going to select it, maybe. And then I'm going to center them. And they'll still fit in my 5x7 hoop. So they're going to fit in this 5x7 hoop fine. And then I'm going to hit OK. And then embroidery. But I'm not going to, oh, it wants to go into a different, oh, is it a little bit wide? Let's see. It should fit. Second here. 4.54 because this is 5x7. So I must be a little off center. Let me take a look here. Sometimes when you put the stuff in, and then before you put the hoop in, it gets kind of upset sometimes. So 4.54, so that should be fine. And then 5.4. So these are 5. Oh, I see. I need to flip them over because they're a little bit too wide. So let me see. Let me hit the OK here. And then let's flip them this way. So I'm just going to get rid of one of them. There we go. Let's just get rid of one of them for a minute. Oh, here's the delete button. Sorry. And then we're just going to rotate this 90 degrees like that. And then we'll duplicate it and bring it down this way. It's just a little bit longer than I thought it was. So it needs to come this way. Okay, so then we can select both of them together and center them. So now they should fit okay. All right. Yeah, they were just a little longer than I thought they were. Yeah, so those will fit. So these two are going to be my next two, and I'm going to sew one in silver and one in the greenish color, but I'm going to start with the green one, and I'm not going to color sort this one. I'm going to let this one do them separately because that way I can change the color for the second one. So I can do one whole one in the green and one whole one in the silver. But then it just saves my stabilizer, see? So I can do a couple at a time. And I did the geometric ones separately, but that's fine. So we'll do the green. I've got my light green in now. And then I'm going to do my placement line for my batting. We'll do the batting. So these are going to be separate. I did not color sort these. So I'll be back in a moment when I have these two done so you can see them, and then I'll do the last one. Okay, so I'm doing my second one this is the spring 2 ones. So I did my green one in the kind of matching green. I think it was called light blue, 12, 26. And then this one is done in the silver. Yeah, silver, gray to kind of match. And then the last one we're going to do in, I think, the matching yellow for this little piece. So I like that. You can see it a little bit more, but it's still subtle. So the rest of them are kind of done, were quite light colored, and so I did them in white. So I didn't want it to show too much, but this will definitely show. So, and then we'll go ahead and get this one ready because this one's going to be a little different because it has that other geometric shape in it. And of course, I skipped step number 4, which was the tack down for these. So there's no tack down, and then they're all quilted. Isn't that pretty? I like those. And then I'm just going to cut those out with my scissors. So I like those. So those are the two that we're done with the spring design. And then I'll go ahead and hoop one more hooping, and I'll come back and show you the last one together. So we're just about done. Okay, so here we're ready for the last block, and this one we're going to go back to the geometric shapes. So, and I think you could have done all of the blocks together if you wanted to, and just put them in, and then not color sorted them because you could put one in one hoop. But this was fast, and it was in a 5x7, so I could have done a couple of them at a time in both of them, I think, but that's okay. The other one was longer. We would have had to flip everything over, so this is going to work just fine. Let's see here. Let's see, we're going to do geometric, and it was 8, I believe. Yes, geometric 8. So let's go down to geometric 8. Hopefully I won't overshoot it so far this bad. Okay, geometric 8. Come on, there we go. And then this one is going to be 2x4. So we'll look for 2x4. So here's 2x4, and it's the horizontal one. So I think they did this one. So it's going to be laying in the quilt this way, so it's actually going to be going up and down, which will be fine. Because if it does this way, then when it lays this way, it's going to be going up and down. So that'll be fine. We'll pick that one. Okay, because it's actually going to be, when we put it in the pillow, it's going to be going this way then. Because it's going to go this way and tipped over. So that'll be fine. All right, so we'll do that. And then I've got my yellow, my matching yellow, which was, I think, 205 in there. And then we'll do our placement line for our batting. Might as well do one last one together so just in case you had a problem with any of these. And then we'll put our batting down next. And all of our filler blocks will be done. They were only 4. Okay. So I'm going to put this in. I'm going to tack it down, and then we'll trim. I have my scissors again, but they have a tendency to land on the floor. All right, so we'll trim this. And then we need our placement line for the fabric. I kind of like the different colors in here. That just gives a few the, well, the blocks are, you know, plainer because there's no other applique on them, so they just give them just a little bit more color. So I think that'll be neat. They're kind of matching them. They kind of had this one done in kind of a green, and I didn't really think I was going to like the green, so I decided to do them all matching. Okay, so then the placement line. Step number 3 is the placement line for our fabric. Get my glue stick ready. I go through a lot of glue sticks, so I had to refill this while I was waiting. The other glue stick never works as well. I don't know what's wrong with that one, but I like this one better. Okay, so then we're going to take our fabric and we're going to go take our glue stick and go all the way around between the batting and the placement line, just like we did before. And we're going to take this and we're going to line it up inside that placement line and just try to be exact as possible. Get it in there nice and straight so that when you go to use it, it'll be straight. Okay. Get it all tacked down in there into the glue. And again, we can skip the tack down line because it's not going to hit anything. It's just going to go along the edge of the fabric. So we'll just go up here and I'm going to hit my little negative needle here. Negative needle. I'm going to go down to the next color, which is going to be our quilting. And we'll quilt the last, second here, quilt the last filler block. I really like that. I really like that geometric pattern. It does look really cool because you can really see the texture. This is going to be another one done in that. So then we'll have all of our little blocks done. Some of the quilts and stuff have quite a few of these filler blocks. So if you're quilting, excuse me, in this manner, you know, in block by block, you do have to make sure that you get those plain blocks quilted as well. So I sometimes kind of forget about them until the very end. So when I was reading through the instructions, I'm like, oh, I got to get those in the video with the flanges and the borders because we've got to quilt those too. So, all right, that's just about done. So I do really like those tone on tone ones. I like that. So here's 3. And there's our final one. So when we put this in the pillow, it's going to be the other way. So this one, so like this one is going to be put in this way. So it's going to be up actually vertical, and then this one is going to be put in vertically, and so this one's going to be horizontal. So they're going to be different. So I like that. So there's the four filler blocks. So we got those all done. I like the matching colors. I think those will be good. You can really see it, but I think I'll like those. So, all right. So the next video will be the assembly. I can't believe we're on the last video. We'll be on the last video, video 5, and we'll assemble the pillow. The center of it, we'll trim all the borders and flanges and make them fit, and we'll put the backing on. So I'm very excited to get this pillow finished, and I've got a pillow form, so I'm anxious to get it done. Like I said, you might possibly see another set of borders and flanges. I'm going to maybe sew them out again in a different color scheme to see if I like them. So then we'll look at them and see what we think. So anyway, I like to do that sometimes, and sometimes it's nice to have done the project once so that I can choose my colors a little bit better. So you just got to work right along with me. Okay, so thank you so much for joining me for video 4 of the Life is Better. I cannot start saying that. Life is Better in Full Bloom. There's something about the name of this pillow, I just can't say it. Life is Better in Full Bloom. So thank you for joining me for video 4, and I will see you for video 5, and we're going to put our pillow together. Thanks, everybody.